Hello everyone, my name is Carrie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a summer book haul. Over the past 4 months I have been on quite a few trips, and this means access to English books. Where I currently live, there's a very small selection of English books, so when I go on trips, this is a really big priority for me, so I have accumulated quite a few books. So let's go ahead and get started. The first rough category is going to be like fantasy and sci-fi. To start off, I have The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I don't know much about this, but I have seen this book everywhere. I have heard it being highly recommended, and I do know that a sequel or a companion book just came out to this, but this sounds so interesting. It's about like an alternate New York where there are these monsters that are like a part of some mythology of the city. That is all I know about this. I have never read an N.K. Jemisin book. I am very intimidated by the 5th season, so I think this might be a good way to see if I get on with N.K. Jemisin's writing and her type of like fantasy structure in her novels. Regardless though, I'm super excited for this. Also, I love this cover. Like there's these little like pieces that show up in the light, and I love the pops of color. The spine is also really nice. But yes, so this is the first one. Then I picked up a cozy sci-fi, and that is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I read this author's Monk and Robot series. I finished it back in, I think, the spring, maybe early summer. I loved it. I love the writing style. It was just such a good, like, cozy series. And I've heard that this, which was Becky Chambers' first, I believe, first like companion series, is very similar. This is about a crew member named Rosemary who ends up going on this spaceship, and it's just kind of about their journey through space, and I think like the interactions with the other people on the ship, and sounds nice. It's a little bit long, and I'm trying sci-fi, so I'm hoping that like the length won't deter me from this one. The next one is one that I have been super excited about because the concept just sounds so fascinating to me, and that is Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. And this is inspired by the prison industrial complex, and there's basically like this gladiator style competition where prisoners like fight to the death, and I believe that they can get their sentences like reduced or like completely cleared through these matches. I've heard amazing things about this. I've heard it's very gory sci-fi / fantasy, so I think I need to be in the right headspace to read this. I have this author's short story collections, or short story collection, Friday Black, on audio, and I'm wondering, do you think I should start with this full-length novel or with the short story collection to kind of get a feel for the writing style, or are they so different that it wouldn't really matter? Something I am now wanting to discover. But yes, I've heard amazing things about this. Another one with a really cool cover and like the colors, how it was designed. I also like the spine too. I love these colors together. It also gives like some fall vibes with the greens, the reds, the yellows. Maybe this should be on my fall TBR. The next category is romance. And first I have a classic, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. This is just a random edition that one of my friends gave me as she was leaving. And I haven't read it in like over a decade, I think, so I think it's time for a reread. Next one that I have is The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. Another gorgeous cover. This follows two neighbors who really do not like each other. They had a bad first interaction, I believe, but the woman, her name is Lily. Lily, she has been corresponding via email with one of her favorite authors. Unbeknownst to her, this author is her neighbor that she dislikes, named Nick. And so it's, I believe, like a You've Got Mail trope, which You've Got Mail is one of my favorite movies. So I'm hoping that I will enjoy this retelling as much as the original. Then I have Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is about a married couple that have divorced by the beginning of this book. They had a child that they lost, and they have 2 other kids that they are raising together. And all I really know is that it's a second chance romance, so I believe it's about like why this couple divorced and like the struggle of infant loss and how they kind of find their way back to each other, which is so beautiful. But I am expecting that I will need a box of tissues for all the tears I'm gonna cry during this. Yeah, I also think there is maybe like a sequel or companion that was just recently released of this, which makes me excited because then if I really enjoy like some of the side characters in this, I might meet them again in the next book, which is actually the theme of the next book that I am going to show you. And that is The True Love Experiment by Kristina Lauren. This is the companion to The Soulmate Equation, which I actually read earlier this year. This follows the story of the main character from the Soulmate Equation's best friend Fizzy, who is a romance author. And I'm so excited. Fizzy was one of my favorite characters of that book, and I cannot wait to get her story. I have really been looking forward to this one, but I think I've maybe built it up a little bit too much in my head because I am really worried. What if this doesn't live up to everything I want for Fizzy? So we will have to see. And the last romance book I have to show you guys is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. This is about this couple that have like a one-night stand, I think, and the girl gets pregnant and then they run into each other and he realizes, oh, she is pregnant. And it's about like them trying to decide if they want to be in a relationship with each other or how they're going to co-parent this child, I think. I've tried to stay a little bit in the dark about what this is about because I've heard amazing things. But with a lot of romance books, I find sometimes the synopsis gives way too much of the story away. So that's where I'm at with this. Next category is poetry, and first I have On the Edge by Mariam Kaviladze. This is a collection of poetry from a Georgian poet, the country, not the state in the US. I went to Tbilisi in Georgia back in late August, and I really wanted to try and find some books by Georgian authors, and I was very surprised that this lovely bookstore I went into had a section on Georgian poets. And I started reading this one and really enjoyed it, so I decided to bring it home with me. Also, this has such a cool cover. I love it. Now, next up, I went to a used bookstore in Istanbul, and this is, I'll insert a picture of it because it's very cool, and there's an adorable cat that I saw while there. This is the Fahrenheit 451 recycling bookstore. The origins of this bookstore is that there were a group of trash collectors in Turkey who kept finding all of these books in the trash, and they thought this was really unfortunate, so they pooled their resources together to make a bookstore. And this bookstore has books in English, German, French, Turkish, a wide variety of languages, and a very interesting selection of books. I found 2 poetry collections while I was there. The first one is Ariadne's Thread, Polish Women Poets. This is an anthology that features female Polish poets, and the origins of this are actually pretty interesting because the editors/translators, Susan Bassnett and Piotr Kuhiwczak, I might be pronouncing the last name incorrectly there, my apologies. They at first were tasked with just looking at the best Polish poetry, and in their introduction they say that they found the best Polish poetry, in their opinion, was coming from female poets. So they reapproached the publisher and said, what if we do one just on female poets? And that is how this collection was born. I have actually already read this, and you'll hear my full thoughts about it in my Sealy wrap-up, but I was really excited to find this there. And the other book that I got at this bookstore was Orhan Veli's Selected Poems. This is translated from the Turkish by Şeref Hazinedar, and this is one of the famous poets in Turkish history from like the days of like the beginning of the Turkish Republic. Again, this is another one you will hear my thoughts about in the Sealy challenge, and also I think the other 2 as well. I read all 4 of these except for the Georgian collection for the Sealy challenge. Then the last 2 poetry collections. The first is Poems of Nazım Hikmet. This was translated from the Turkish by Blasing and Mutlu Konuk, and this is just a collection of Nazım Hikmet's poetry, which are the ones that these 2 translators thought were the best, which is kind of controversial because there are some poems that were excluded from this that many Turkish people consider to be Nazım Hikmet's most famous ones, and a lot of people have been very shocked by the ones excluded from this. But Nazım Hikmet is a famous Turkish communist who passed away in the 1960s, but spent most of his life as a political prisoner or in political exile, which is what a lot of his poems are about. And last but certainly not least, in the poetry category, I have Please Do Not Touch This Exhibit by Jen Campbell. I have been trying to find this collection since its release. This was, I believe, published through a small independent publisher in the UK. It was very hard to find it in the US. I was unable to find it when I was in the UK earlier this year. And randomly in Budapest, I went into this small publishing house and bookstore called Atlantis Publishing, and they had a copy, and I was so excited. I've been wanting to read this for a long time. This is kind of a rumination on Jen Campbell's life, living as a differently abled person, and it's interspersed with pieces from her medical history about how the doctors talk about her and approach her, and I think it's a really amazing collection. And the last category I have is kind of a blend of literary fiction. I think some of these are short story collections, some of them are just literary works. So let's go ahead and jump into those. First, I have The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yōko Ogawa. This was translated from the Japanese by Stephen Snyder, and this is the story of a housekeeper to a professor who is experiencing Alzheimer's. And I don't know much more than that. I've heard that this is a really amazing book though, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping that this might be one I get to in shorty September. Next, I have Greek Lessons by Han Kang. This is, as always, translated from the Korean by Deborah Smith, my favorite dynamic duo. This is about a woman who is taking Greek lessons, but she is silent. She is mute, she does not speak. This really fascinates her professor, and they form, I believe, like this tenuous friendship because they have both recently experienced some trauma. Next, I have what some might call a weapon, a brick, because I have this giant book. It's around 1,000 pages, and it is The Eighth Life by Nino Harachvili. And this I recently found out is not actually translated from the Georgian, but from the German, because the author is Georgian German, and the translators are Charlotte Collins and Ruth Martin. And this is a book that I have tried to not know what it's about. I believe it is about 8 generations of a family from the time that Georgia becomes like a protected territory under Russia, as in the Russian Empire, and then the collapse of the Soviet Union and the fight for Georgian independence. I am not really sure about much beyond that. This is a book that I am contemplating if I read in the fall, because I don't know, something about this is giving like fall winter vibes. Maybe because I love a long book that lasts me through the winter, and this will definitely last through the winter. But yeah, regardless, I'm really excited about this, and also the Georgian poetry collection. I don't think I've ever read a book by a Georgian author before, so I am really, really excited for those. Similarly, the next book is also from a language and a country that I don't think I have read an author from before, and that is Time Shelter by Georgy Gospodinov, I believe. And this has such a cool cover. And also, fun fact, the translator of this, who translated it from the Bulgarian, her name is Angela Rodel, and she is actually in charge of the Bulgarian Fulbright program. And one of my good friends here at my current job actually previously worked with her. She was the one who told me, you have to buy this, because Angela Rodel has been really pushing for more Bulgarian works to be translated in English, and she has been really leading the charge on this, so I was even more inspired to pick this one up. This is much beloved on the International Booker list. It's about this clinic that I believe offers treatment for Alzheimer's. I guess this is technically more like sci-fi fantasy, but I, for some reason, put it in literary fiction. Now that I'm talking about it, I realize maybe I put this in the wrong category. Regardless though, I am really excited for this one. I find it interesting that this is hypothesizing this possible treatment for Alzheimer's by creating these like time capsules almost for these people to visit. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting read. Next, I have a book I'm going to have to turn sideways because it is Winter in Sochco by Eliza de Chopin. And this is translated, I believe, from the French. Yes, by Anissa Abbas Higgins. And I just love that this is like a postcard. It's so cute. This is about a French-Korean woman that goes to like this border town, I think, between North and South Korea. And it's about like her experiences there. I have heard very mixed things about this, but I've still been so intrigued. Especially because it's a French author writing about a French-Korean woman set in this area of like North-South Korea, not really sure. I believe this author, she previously lived in South Korea, if my research is right. I could be wrong. But yeah, so I'm very intrigued by this because it sounds like a really interesting blend of backgrounds that came together to make this book happen. Next, I have Green Frog by Jenna Chung. I've been really excited for this one, and not just because of this cool cover, but I don't really know anything about these short stories. I've just heard that this is a really fun and wild collection, and that is really all I want to know. I feel like the last couple years I haven't been reading as many short stories, which is kind of sad because I remember in 2022, I was in the short story era. I was finding so many amazing collections, and I think I need to give some more chances because this sounds like just the vibes, it might be up my alley. I'm hoping. And then the last book that I have is a very beloved book right now, and that is Martyr by Kaviladze. This is about a young man who is mourning the loss of his mother, and I think it's kind of him just ruminating on his family and what brought them to the life that they live. And I know that also the main character is recently sober, so I think that is going to be a part of like the reflection and examination process. I love Kaviladze's poetry, so I'm really excited for this full-length novel. I also recently read his partner's poetry collection titled Space Struck by Paige Lewis for the Sealy Challenge, and I really enjoyed their poetry as well. So they're kind of an iconic coupling for me at this point. Really, really looking forward to this one. And those are all the books that I accumulated over this summer. Please let me know if you have read any of these or if you bought any of them recently. I would love to hear positive thoughts about them. Hopefully they were all good. There are no bad books here, all amazing. So yes, those are all the books. Thank you so much for watching and happy reading. Bye.